Okay, pretty wild day today in the markets. We've had some very big movement in a lot of big names. Obviously, Moderna is down quite a bit today because we have seen a lot of investors taking profits, including myself. I did enter a short position in Moderna early this morning before market open, got out at about 138 a share. That was a pretty good trade this morning, and a lot of other interesting opportunities popping up in that regard. The big news today, though, is what's going on with the U.S. bond market. A lot of negative sentiment around the board. We've seen Walmart have their slowest growth in years. Not a great day for Walmart, down nearly 10% on the trading session to just under or just over 103 bucks a share. So an interesting position for Walmart and what's been going on with them. We have seen gold and Bitcoin absolutely rip. Bitcoin is up an absolutely insane amount over the last week or so. We've seen Bitcoin as low as under $65,000 a share or $65,000 a coin since yesterday, and we're now nearly at 73,000. A lot of a lot of what we have seen with Bitcoin today is a result of what has been announced by the U.S. Treasury, a lot of buyback activity going on, and we've seen a lot of appreciation in gold and other crypto assets as a result. Because of this, we've seen Strategy Inc. have an absolutely another monster day today. MSTR up another 6%. We're nearly at $111 per share. A lot of really interesting things going on. So far. My favorite stock to enter today, as far as stocks that I would enter today, is a good question because I haven't taken a super close look at what the good bullish plays are. Long term, I'm still bullish on Reddit, like I have always said on my live streams. Down about 4% today. I think this is fantastic value territory for Reddit. The market has it completely wrong when it comes to Reddit and the Google and the relationship between those two. So a lot of very interesting activity on that front. I think the market has it completely wrong. How much I invest into Nvidia? That depends on you. Depends on your risk tolerance. Depends on what you want your exposure to look like. Now, with respect to NVIDIA, the obvious thing, or one of the obvious things to do with NVIDIA is to play it off of earnings that's supposed to come in a week or in 6 days. It'll be very interesting to see what NVIDIA does at that point. I think it'll have very big implications for the rest of the AI supply chain. It'll have implications for neoclouds, hyperscalers, semis, memory, all of these and everyone in between. Is Reddit profitable? Yes, Reddit is a profitable company. Should I buy Meta? Timothy, if you want to get exposure to a hyperscaler, Meta is one that I'm kind of avoiding at the moment. Everything that's going on with Meta is something that makes me a little bit nervous, especially off-balance sheet activity. I think Microsoft is a safer play right here, but obviously the market is not having a great day today. Thoughts on Lennar? As far as Lennar is concerned, I think that home builders they're in a tough spot. You're probably not going to see the PE extend much further beyond 20. Building houses is very cyclical. It's very predictable. It's very interest rate dependent. A lot of what Lennar has had to do is they've had to offer their inventory at significant discounts or offer some type of financing to their prospective customers. It could be a solid defensive play. This might not be a bad idea to get in at this point. I wouldn't imagine though that you're going to see any type of wild upswing. I think if you're bullish on interest rates and you think interest rates are going to end up coming down, then Lennar might be an interesting play. At the moment, no, though, I'm not into Lennar. I think there's better defensive plays with better moats. And as far as Oracle is concerned, Henrik, I'm not interested in Oracle. I don't think Oracle is a good play at the moment. How about IBM? Ollie, I think IBM is on the sidelines for me. I am not interested in IBM at this price point. Once I have to finish all my homework on IBM, could be an interesting one. Still doing my due diligence on IBM. And what happened with AMD? What did happen with AMD today? We're down about 1%. Nothing too crazy with AMD. And as far as AMD is concerned, I think this is way too expensive given what you are paying for relative to earnings, especially when you compare the capital that could be invested in NVIDIA. Very high opportunity cost that you're paying when you're buying AMD. AMD. Am I buying Reddit at these levels? Rasmus, yes. Yes, I like Reddit at these levels. I know that Reddit is not a super popular stock at the moment. My bull thesis has been published on YouTube. I like what Reddit's doing. I think the market has it wrong. Just joined live stream. Is SpaceX goodbye? C. Myers, I do not like SpaceX at this price. I don't. If SpaceX goes under $100 per share, I'll pay closer attention to it. Whatever it does at this point is not something that I'm particularly interested in. It's massively overvalued as is. As soon as it enters a territory that I think is potentially worth buying, that's under $80 a share, that's when that'd be interested in getting in, maybe. But I definitely need to read the regulatory filings. Definitely need to do the due diligence. The Reddit stock subreddit is in shambles. It's insane. Well, yeah, I mean, people are going to be freaking out. Of course, people are going to freak out about Reddit having a bad day. These are not investors who are serious about buying a good business. They're investors who are much more afraid of losses than the long-term value of the company. And I'm patient. I'm buying. My positions in Reddit started at around 162. I got in at 158 as well. This is another great entry point, I think. IREN thoughts. Neoclouds and IREN, Neoclouds in general, I'm bearish on, especially Nebius. I did have a short position in Nebius yesterday, and made a pretty nice profit off of that trade as well. What do I think of Broadcom? Broadcom, I think they're a better place than Broadcom. I'd take a look at Qualcomm. I'd take a look at Applied Materials, and potentially Lam Research as well. Do I think Reddit will go back up? Yes, I do. What's your take on Rocket Lab? Cathie Wood's buying again. They'll beat SpaceX record to 100 launches. A lot of execution risk. Cathie Wood does not have a good track record when it comes to managing money. It's pretty amazing to me that she still has a career in what she's doing. She sucks at picking stocks. She probably always will suck at picking stocks. Not a fan of what she does. Not a fan of ARK strategy. Not a fan of their theses. Am I interested in space stocks? Joe, long term I am. But for a company like Rocket Lab, it's too much execution risk for me. Very long term, I'm bullish on SpaceX. But the business needs to perform. Nick, appreciate the heartbeat, man. How long have I been doing this? I've been investing for about 15 years. Trading stocks, bonds, and that kind of stuff for about 15 years. Any thoughts on SoFi? Kind of boring hobby, to be honest. It's a little bit of a boring play. I'd imagine SoFi. What kind of day is SoFi having today? There's probably, they're in the red like everybody else. SoFi has been hanging out between $15 and $20 a share for most of the year at this point. I don't see signs of a breakout. I don't see signs of anything particularly interesting happening with SoFi. What about Snapchat? Snapchat's one I'm avoiding. They're only extending the inevitable for them. Do I think Bloom Energy will recover? I think Bloom Energy, I'd need to see a very strong bear case for Bloom Energy, to be honest. And it depends on where we define the recovery point. For example, if if we define the recovery point at, say, above $300 a share, way up here, that's probably going to take a while. If it's above 250, it could be sooner than later. But as a long-term hold, I need to see a solid bull thesis on Bloom, and I don't see it. Meta, Francisco, Meta is not my favorite play at the moment. I think Microsoft's a better bet. I think there's better things going on. I like Amazon more than Meta as well. So, yeah. I like Rocket Lab over SpaceX. Rocket Lab will be profitable next year. So why is that, though, Odiko? Why is Rocket Lab going to be profitable? What makes Rocket Lab? Why is it a good entry point for Rocket Lab? Their guidance didn't indicate that they would be profitable next year. At least I didn't see it. Thoughts on Reddit currently? Kirsch Coffee still bullish. I like this price a lot for Reddit. The reason why Reddit is going down, I'd imagine, is because we're probably getting a lot of indications from the market that the traffic going to Reddit as a result of their relationship with Google hasn't done as well as people would have hoped. There's probably some truth to that, but most people use Reddit on mobile. And Reddit's fundamentals, they've had 8 consecutive quarters of 60% revenue growth. Like that's extremely strong. Very, very strong fundamentals. And that's being ignored. And if it's going to be ignored, at the end of the day, eventually the fundamentals will win. Thoughts on Intel? Intel's way too expensive at this price, to be honest. I like there's light at the end of the tunnel for Intel. But the foundry turnaround, I think it's going to take 18 to 24 more months. Yeah, and I know a lot of people on Wall Street Bets. I know a lot of people on the internet, and wherever else don't like Reddit at the moment. That's fine with me. That's fine with me. I will happily load up on more Reddit stock at this price. Difference between contracts and buying stocks. Usually by contracts, I'm sure you probably mean options. Options are derivatives. So the value of options is derived from the underlying security. And I would definitely go do more research on options and learning what all that means before you start doing that. Thoughts on Adobe, new CEO announcement soon. Yeah, I think that Adobe, I mean, I've called it a value trap recently. It's obviously been a kind of a rough year for Adobe. What I want to know is what's going to be the catalyst to cause it to break out, and how are they going to differentiate themselves with so many people using AI when it comes to image editing and all these types of things. I don't think Adobe's going anywhere, but it could remain at this point for a while until the market becomes convinced that, their moat is real. I'd love to see a strong bull case for Adobe. And if anybody has that research, I'd be happy to look it over. Love to see it. What do I think of Bitcoin? Bitcoin has had an incredible run, especially in the last 24 hours. But this is purely a macro play. This movement that we've seen in Bitcoin is as a result of U.S. Treasury buybacks. The market did not buy. Scott Bessent got on CNBC this morning and basically tried to gaslight everyone into thinking that the bond market's fine. It's not. It's not fine. The U.S. Treasury is basically using its credit card to pay the mortgage. And we're having to use short-term securities to buy long-term ones. As a result, investors are fleeing to other commodities and other assets like gold, silver, and Bitcoin's one of them. That's why we saw Bitcoin have this absolutely insane run-up yesterday and, part of today as well, because of what's going on in the bond market. So is Bitcoin going to stay here? Hard to say. It could, though. It very well could. It very well could. Target's holding up. Target is an interesting play at the moment. I know that Target is getting a lot of the tariff refunds back. I know that Target's kind of getting its mojo back, especially with the new CEO, new management team. It's had a pretty good year so far. The question then becomes, is this the right time to get into Target? I mean, is Target kind of returning to the COVID version of itself when it was the absolute darling of Wall Street? I mean, back here, like 2020, 2021, it was an insanely good time for Target. Could we see that? Maybe it's possible. I need to do more research on, how they're going to change their model a little bit, though. Do I have a course? No, I don't have a course. Okay, hello. It's an interesting play. What I like about it is that, I mean, it's an interesting utility niche. Honestly, I like Constellation more. I think Constellation's the better play. you can get good nuclear exposure with them. I like Constellation Energy more. Eli Lilly, Eli Lilly is my favorite American pharmaceutical at the moment. They've been doing extremely good. It's very interesting to see, though, the difference in the premium that the market prices on Eli Lilly versus one of its big competitors, Novo Nordisk. It's pretty big, and pretty interesting to see that. Thoughts on AVAV? It's a defense company. Um, The good news with defense contractors is that the quality of earnings for defense contractors is always extremely strong. The problem with AVAV is I think that they have weak fundamentals for a defense contractor. I mean, if we look right here, and we check out, what their performance has been, very strong revenue growth from 25 to 26, but profitability got worse. That's a problem. Balance sheet health looks good. And if we look at things on a quarter-over-quarter basis, it's okay. But again, I'd probably need to do a little bit more homework on them to see what the right move is with them. There's stronger fundamentals with other defense contractors that you can get. Is Moderna a buy today? Honestly, I shorted Moderna this morning. In my view, no. We kind of need to see where things stabilize at. The opportunity to short Moderna was just too good to ignore at close yesterday and this morning. That run up where the market cap of the company nearly tripled in a single day is pretty wild. So as far as getting in at this price, you have to have very high conviction about this phase 3 trial for this melanoma vaccine. I don't know enough about that and the biology of all of that stuff and the mechanics of the vaccine to have very high conviction about it. But what I saw yesterday, I said it's people are going to take profits for sure. Now it's out here trading like a meme coin. Yeah, Nate, kind of. Yeah. Do I think Nvidia will go up after earnings? Thomas, I'd imagine they will. Only a little bit. We're probably going to see a beat on revenue and profitability for Nvidia. I think the trend will probably continue. Target, Walmart, or both? To be honest, I think Walmart has a little bit better value, especially after the correction we saw today. Obviously, I haven't read the entire 10Q. I haven't read the whole report on Walmart. So at face value, it could seem like a decent place to get into Walmart. And I haven't seen a lot of the regulatory filings for Target either. So for Target, they've had a very strong year already. For Walmart, this looks like it could be a buy the dip opportunity. Meta goodbye right now. Honestly, I'm avoiding Meta. The lawsuit's an issue. It could turn into a nothing burger. But with Meta, the concern for me is Mark Zuckerberg's strategic vision of where he's placing all this money. I mean, this is the same guy who said that the metaverse was going to change the world, and that turned out to be pretty laughable. The metaverse sucked. It was terrible and buggy, and now he wants to put a super intelligent agent in the hand of every single Facebook and Instagram user or whoever, and this agent's supposed to, manage your finances, manage your marriage, figure out how you negotiate a raise with your boss, like all this weird, creepy, dystopian stuff. This is not something that I read his essay, his 7,000-word essay. He's someone who can't see the forest through the trees. So I don't like Mark Zuckerberg's strategic vision for the company. The fundamentals are good. Earnings are obviously good. Off-balance sheet activity is a concern. So no, I'm not interested at Meta at this point. Schwab index fund? Yeah, you can get Schwab has some great index fund products. Is owning Microsoft, Google, and Nvidia stupid, or is it just good to focus on one? I don't think stupid's the right word if you own all three. Microsoft and Google are the two best hyperscalers at the moment, at least in my opinion. And Nvidia is the dominant player in its space. So I don't think there's anything wrong with owning all three of them. No. just seems basic. Well, the thing is with today's market, I mean, owning what are quote unquote basic investments isn't a bad idea. I don't think so. And the reason for that is because those basic investments usually are companies that have strong fundamentals compared to like risky semi plays or space stocks or, you know, biotech startups or whatever. IREN, so with IREN, I know a lot of people have asked me about IREN. I know earnings are coming up. I don't like neoclouds. I don't like neoclouds in general. I've profited from their stocks underperforming. It is no secret that I am very loud on being a CoreWeave bear, and I am also bearish on Nebius. If I had to pick a neocloud, it would probably be IREN, but I don't love IREN at this price. It's too expensive. Can SanDisk come back to 1900 this August? Yeah, maybe. It's possible. The likelihood of that is hard to say. There's strong fundamentals with SanDisk. The problem with memory at the moment is that we got bad guidance for the first quarter of 2027. So will new information come out such that the market believes it's worth more, justifying an $1,900 price before the end of the month? Time's running out. We would have to have some very, very strong days ahead of us. XPMV, CEG are new. Felix, I like Constellation Energy. It's not bad. What about Reddit at this level? I like Reddit at this level. The market is freaking out about Reddit. It's silly. No, I think this is a fantastic value opportunity for Reddit. The fundamentals of Reddit are insanely strong. I mean, we have 8 quarters of 60% revenue growth, and people are freaking out about where the minority of the traffic for this site comes from. And AI content licensing is in jeopardy because of some bot concerns and bot rumors. I mean, sure. Like, that's fine. You can buy into the rumor mill. I'm buying the fundamentals on Reddit. Should I leverage my business with a line of credit, invest in the stock market with 8% different interest? Give that a try and let us know how it goes. What about Nebius? Good entry right now? No, absolutely not. No. Nebius. This is not a good business. It's not a good company. They're running out of cash, and now they have to sell another $5 billion convertible note in multiple tranches on top of the debt that they already have. And by the way, this is a company that the market thinks is worth something nearly like what CoreWeave is. I mean, they got a $59 billion market cap. CoreWeave is less. CoreWeave is a smaller market cap than Nebius, and Nebius is less earnings. It's kind of wild. Actually wild. No, Nebius is not a good, no. Can you see the market going bearish in the next 3 months? Mac, it depends on what we see with the bond market. It depends on what we see with the bond market. If the market is calling Scott Bessent's bluff today, which is, I think, a concern. We'll see Treasury buyback operations between September 9th and November 4th, and I think they're going to be pretty aggressive with it. But it also depends on what the Japanese do. They may unload U.S. debt, and that's a very uncomfortable spot for the U.S. Treasury market to be in. We'll see rates spike pretty hard. That's why we're seeing Bitcoin up 6% today. A lot of people are fleeing into things like gold. They're fleeing into things like digital assets. So, yeah. For Planet Labs, give me a ticker for Planet Labs. I need a ticker. And do I see a future for Virgin Galactic? Christian, I'd have to look into it. Can we look at Boston Scientific? Yeah. Yeah, Boston Scientific. Not the best day, but not the best year. What I do know is Boston Scientific has a pretty good moat. It has a pretty strong moat. I mean, just for those of you who aren't familiar, they're in medical devices, and they have all kinds of stuff. Whether it's scopes for like diagnostic systems, they've got cardiovascular, medical surgery. So any of the types of things that you'll see, like balloons for STEMI surgery on hearts. I mean, like penile implants, right? Pretty important. They've got ureteroscopes, like all kinds of stuff. So the moat is deep, and it's there. They've been in business for a long time. As far as Boston Scientific's fundamentals, and just taking a base look at things, the revenue growth is impressive year over year, and the company's balance sheet looks pretty healthy. Quarter over quarter, things aren't that bad either. They're maintaining a nice 16-17% margin on about $5.4 billion in revenue. It could be a good value opportunity for Boston Scientific. I need to actually do a deep dive into the filings because it could be an interesting play. We're at a beta of 0.57 and a trailing 12-month PE of just over 20 without a dividend. This year has been bad. It hasn't been great, but it doesn't really behave like a defensive play. Here's its performance over the last 5 years. So then the question then becomes, all right, are they going to turn things around? It's possible. It's very possible. Boston Scientific's on my short list, is on my watch list. Walmart, yeah. So here's and then with Walmart, tough day, bad guidance. They had slow growth, and it could be a good buy the dip opportunity with Walmart. I'd have to go read the entire report though. I don't think that people should suddenly rush into this. I think it's worth doing the homework just because of where things currently stand. I mean, 36 for Walmart's position is pretty rich. Historically speaking, that's not too crazy, but given where things are at and given Walmart's size and its relative importance on the macro side of things, it's worth checking out. It's worth looking into. What about Pfizer on Moderna news? Honestly, Pfizer's not as interesting to me as Eli Lilly is. Should I take profits with ServiceNow? How's ServiceNow doing? Nice. In my view, I think if we see ServiceNow break out about 135, it could be a good place to take profits. It's a hold for me. If I have stock in ServiceNow, I'm hanging on to it for now. If I see it break out above 135, I'm probably going to take profits at that point if I own shares in ServiceNow. Obviously, it's been a bit of a rough year. That we did have a local bottom at around 90 per share immediately after earnings, and they did have a good report. So I think that there's things to like about ServiceNow. I've done a deep dive on the company on my YouTube channel. There's a lot of things to like about it, but I'd say wait for a breakout above 135. Would you take profits with Microsoft or Wendy's? Wendy's. I take profits with Wendy's. Can we check UCTT? Their biggest customers are AMAT and Lam Research. Yeah, for sure. Well, I believe we've looked at these guys before. It's been a while though. Bit of a rough month for them, and I believe they're like suppliers for semi plays. Yeah, I remember this. Yeah, so they actually do the cleaning and remove micro contamination on the wafers, chemicals, that kind of stuff. Deionized water. Yeah. Now, as far as their fundamentals, I think they were actually kind of bad, if I recall. Let's triple check that, though, or double check that. Yeah, it's... so what's interesting to me is why they aren't really making money. If you're going to do $645 million in business in the second quarter and make a profit of $8.7 million, that's disappointing. So their cost structure is something I want to know. Not great fundamentals. At kind of an expensive valuation. I mean, this is a $3.3 billion company on $645 million in revenue and $8.7 million in profit. That feels rich. But Probably deserves a little bit more due diligence, but I'd probably avoid it. Sup, Andrew? Long-term SoFi thoughts, S&P 500 inclusion in 2026. Evan, how's it going, my man? I would say that SoFi's still boring to me, to be honest. Depending on how you define long-term, it could be better, or it could be good. But I think with SoFi, I'd need to see this strong bull thesis for SoFi. And absolutely, Will. Why do you believe in Reddit? Garment Display, go check out my YouTube channel. That's where I post my long-term thesis video on Reddit. Long story short is that we've seen good growth in their KPI metrics, especially internationally. AI content licensing is a really strong revenue stream that they could build out. They've got a strong advertising business on their hands, and we're looking at something like eight quarters of 60% consecutive revenue growth. Extremely strong fundamentals. And a decent moat at that. What I will say, though, is that the market reaction to their relationship with Google, I think, is an overreaction. Keel, please. Not a huge fan of Keel. Did I buy into Reddit? Yes, I did buy into Reddit. Reddit is in my holdings. All right, Planet Labs. What about Planet Labs? This is kind of ringing a bell. I definitely need a refresher on them. Launch constellation of satellites intent to provide high cadence geospatial data delivered to customers online. SuperDove satellites, scanning the planet. Grants up of GSD resolution of 3.5 meters. Cool. Pelican satellites to capture specified locations several times a day, achieving GSD resolution of up to 50 centimeters. Damn. It's pretty impressive. And they're a GIS company. Yeah, I remember these guys. As far as I remember, I don't think their fundamentals were that impressive either. And we're looking at about an $8 billion company and we don't have data on them. Let's go check here on Yahoo to see. Quarterly. So we're seeing some revenue growth, but losses are pretty heavily sustained. I mean, in the first quarter, we did $94 million in revenue on a $139 million loss. I'd need to see a very strong bull case for these guys. It looks like they're nearly able to pass the acid test. Their cash and equivalents can nearly cover all liabilities, which is good. That means, though, that they probably don't have a ton of long-term, high-value fixed assets that can give the company real staying power. That's something that's a bit of a concern. So, no, I don't like this pick so far. It's probably worth a little bit more research to see where the breakout could be, but performance this year has been basically flat. Not so nice guy on YouTube, or not so nice guy. Sorry, the text is a little bit small. Not so nice guy on YouTube says, "Hey Andrew, what are you thinking about Oracle long term?" Oracle long term is a little concerning. Oracle's debt is an issue, and Oracle's credit risk with OpenAI is a serious problem. And I know that OpenAI recently came out with their report that they had 18% revenue growth year over year, I believe, which is honestly kind of disappointing for an AI company, one of the leading AI companies, and losses expanded. So no, I'm not for Oracle. I'm avoiding it. It's tempting to get in at an under 25 PE with an with a manageable beta, and we're getting a 1.4% yield. I think that's not, that feels like cheese in a mousetrap. Especially with some of the longer term things with Oracle, and especially if you look at their balance sheet. So no, I'm sitting on the sidelines with Oracle, biding my time. Obviously, we're going to need to see more information as things come out with Oracle and what their plans are with OpenAI, but that's the main risk. What about OKLO? Not my favorite nuclear play. I like Constellation more. Rivian, I don't buy automotive companies. let alone Rivian. I don't buy Tesla, don't buy Ford, GM, any of it. Automotive companies are not, I'm not a fan of it. And Iren is, I don't like Iren. I'm not a huge fan of NeoClouds. It's too expensive for the price. Not a fan of Iren. I know earnings are coming up, but NeoClouds have not had a good week. Would you go look at WYLD Networks? Are these the guys? Are these who we're looking at, Robin? Because if it's a $4 million micro cap, it's not even worth my time. Yeah, no, I'm not. Don't care. Don't care at all. Iron will for sure bounce after earnings, just like the other two. Wilt, I can't imagine that it wouldn't, but we know how things went after earnings for both of them. Went pretty poorly. What about Cloudflare? Cloudflare is an interesting one. I don't pay as much attention to Cloudflare as I should. I think they have an interesting security niche, and I think that they do a pretty good job. Let's get a quick fundamental refresh on Cloudflare, because this is a stock that's kind of flown under the radar a little bit for me. And as far as their year-over-year performance, yeah, I had a feeling it wasn't going to be ideal. This is what concerns me, is that you're going to see revenue growth, but losses expanded as a result. That's a bit of a problem. So it's worth doing some investigation as to why that is. It looks like it could be a one-off, like maybe legal cost or something like this, maybe a large amortization charge on their income statement. And there are some pretty big investing flows. So this looks like it could be a one-off charge. Maybe they sold something with some high fees. The balance sheet seems a little bloated too. I need to know how much of that liabilities is out of that $4.8 billion in liabilities is debt. And it looks like they're losing a little bit of money. You also have a pretty high beta as well. It's been a decent year though for Cloudflare. The market did not like Q1 earnings at all though. So it's worth taking a look at. I'd sideline it for now until I finish my research on it. What about Palantir? Honestly, Palantir feels like it's a good time to short Palantir. With Palantir, what I will say is that Palantir has extremely strong and extremely impressive growth in revenue and margins. It's very impressive what they've accomplished. The valuation is something I'm not a fan of, though. I think the market is pricing in perfection with respect to growth for Palantir. So if there is some room for expansion, then it's definitely overvalued. It still is overvalued in my opinion, but if there's even more upside to Palantir, that's a concern. My Trump hater, we are doing exceptionally well. National debt ceiling should be 50 trillion. Well, 40 trillion in national debt is not a good thing. Does U.S. national debt affect the stock market? It affects the bond market, which affects rates, which affects the stock market. So, in short, yes. It's just indirectly, and it's a question of how much each affects the other. Can you go through why you're not a fan of AV? Hey, Christian, are we talking about AV? Because I did go through that. What would be your recommendations right now for long short? Thanks for answering previous questions. Kind of new to stock trading. Well, welcome in. Glad you're stopping by. As far as longs that I like at the moment, obviously I've said I'm long Reddit. I also do like Take-Two Interactive. That's another stock I've been vocal about. I see a lot of potential with Take-Two Interactive, especially with what's going on with Grand Theft Auto 6. Elf Cosmetics is another one that I was pretty bullish on. I liked a lot. It's about at my price target, though. My price target for Elf was $100 a share, and that was when that was like a month ago, a little bit more back in July when I did my deep dive on Elf. So this could be a good hold. fundamentals from for Elf look very good, despite the fact that we're at a 101 PE. Price to sales is much, much lower than that. So there's a lot of things to like about Elf, in my opinion. They did really smart things with their acquisitions. And I think that there's also a lot of things to like about Microsoft at the moment. They're my favorite hyperscaler. Definitely a lot of things to like about Microsoft. And as far as short opportunities, it could be a good time for a Palantir short. I need to do a little bit more analysis on that. And then I'm also short CoreWeave. CoreWeave is my biggest conviction play at the moment. Definitely short them. MP Materials. MP Materials is cool. I like USAR more, though. Any stocks I'm short? Yeah, I'm shorting CoreWeave. I shorted Moderna this morning, got out of that trade, and I also shorted Nebius earlier this week and got out of that trade. I shorted Nebius at 246, 247, like 246.50, got out at 217, and I shorted Moderna at 150, got out at 138. What do you think about Keel? A little bloated, a little expensive. They've got they made the right move. They got into a crowded space though. They're probably in the weakest position with respect to accessing capital if they want to grow. Right now, Nebius and CoreWeave basically dominate capital markets access and investor appetite for investing into neoclouds. I don't love Keel's position. They basically have the smallest piece of the pie, and their moat isn't that strong. Long-term stock to buy currently. I like, as far as very long-term stocks, I like Apple. I've been holding Apple forever. I'll probably never sell Apple. I think Microsoft is another good one. And Nebius to 1,000 per share. Yeah, we'll see. Andrew, do you have any thoughts on KSPI? Yeah, let me go check that out. This looks like, I've never heard of it. Infrastructure in Kazakhstan. Interesting. Provides payment marketplace fintech solutions for merchants in Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Ukraine. Fascinating. Payments and fintech. So they're a payments processor, it looks like, an acquirer. Wow, and they've been in business since 2008 in Kazakhstan. Very interesting. CJ, as if their fundamentals are okay, let me go look here. I've never heard of this company. Not bad. I believe this is the same one. Let me check. Yep. Not bad, especially year over year from 24 to 25 with the revenue growth. Love to know what these investing outflows are and those financing inflows are. That may have been a debt raise potentially. I'd need to know how much of their balance sheet is debt. Not a bad margin though for the line of business that they're in. Very interesting. International companies like this with like strong growth that nobody hears about or talks about is actually pretty interesting. This could be worth a look. It actually could be. $20 billion market cap at a less than 9 PE. Very low beta. Very low beta, and you're getting a 6% yield. How have they done so far this year? Wow. CJ, love the request. That's a fantastic little niche, or this looks like a fantastic little play. I'll definitely go look at these guys. Definitely go look at these guys. Am I cooked when shorting Moderna right now? Is it still fine to do that? I think when it comes to Moderna, I will probably see more correction over the next month. Good entry for Moderna. That's very hard to say. Very hard to say. How realistic the vaccine, the melanoma vaccine trials are, is it's going to be news that's going to move the stock, I would imagine. obviously, when a company nearly triples in value in a single day is very exciting for its shareholders, but almost inevitably there's a large correction after that just because those shareholders are taking profits. I'm sure there's a lot of people that took profits yesterday, or at least this morning at market open. So, shorting Moderna right now, I don't know. You'd have to take a really sharp look at the technicals and see what you like about it. I think it was a fantastic swing trade opportunity. That's what I'll say. I wouldn't. Yeah, it's a little. It feels a little risky to get in or short it, um, just because of what's going on with the stock. So yeah, Andrew, what do you think about gold? I think gold is my favorite macro hedge. I think gold is, so as far as like the Spider Gold ETF, having a pretty decent day. It spiked this morning when Scott Bessent got on CNBC, which was interesting to say the least. And then I think gold is we may be above 4,600 a troy ounce for the actual gold futures. No, we're sitting just under 4,600, 4,582. So not a bad day for gold. It's my favorite macro hedge. And I definitely hold some. I think it's a good idea to hold gold in a portfolio. Buying more VU right now or a little bit on the dip. VU is an ETF that I think you can just hold forever. And it's not a bad idea. ServiceNow just broke 130. Hopefully it can continue. What about AAOI? It's an interesting niche when it comes to data center development. I think, wow, they're having a great day, 5.5%. I think if I wanted to get into the fiber game, I would probably pick this company. I need to learn more about the fiber game, though. What about silver? As Julian, silver is another fantastic macro hedge. I like silver. It's a little bit more. It's a little bit more fickle than gold, though. Favorite gold ETF? Esteban, I like GLD. It's a solid gold ETF. Okay, InnoData. Yeah, let's go check out InnoData. Joran, I think with InnoData, kind of a mixed day for them. I think they got a lot of interesting things. I need to understand the moat a little bit more for InnoData. As far as like training AI models, I think that's that's an interesting business to be in, but I need to understand the business a little bit better. It looks like they had really strong revenue in Q2 26 and 40% revenue growth for the year. That's pretty good. Given that strong of growth, a 48 PE, at least from a trailing 12-month perspective, seems pretty good. I'd like to know a little bit more about the company and or see somebody's both case about that, see their thesis about it. The margin looks a little bit thin. No, and actually it's not bad though. And year-over-year fundamentals or quarter-over-quarter fundamentals look pretty good. So yeah, worth investigating. Something to get excited about potentially, but need a little bit more homework on that. Absolutely, Esteban. Absolutely. What do you think about Pfizer? J-Man, I haven't paid a ton of attention to Pfizer, if I'm being honest. I like Eli Lilly more. What do I think of Applied Digital, APLD? I don't like Applied Digital. They should be they're the fact that they're losing a lot of money pretty quickly is a problem. That indicates in today's market you should be making a lot of money, especially if you're in that space. Can we look at Prologis? Yeah. What about Prologis? Company's moving forward with an $18.8 billion acquisition of Segro, which is expected to enhance European logistic portfolio significantly. Huh, okay. So what kind of real estate assets are they getting as a result? Looks like they own a bunch of, as a REIT, I would guess they probably own a bunch of warehouses. 3% yield on it, if it is in fact like fully a REIT. Or Boros, what do we like about Prologis? What's interesting about them? Like why are we taking a look at these guys? What's so cool about it? It is, yeah. I mean, look, I as far as like commercial real estate REITs are concerned, they're okay. You're just gonna get a boring and predictable return. Yeah, warehouses. Honestly, in my view, I think residential REITs are more interesting. I own a REIT called ABR, Arbor Realty Trust, that's sitting at a 19% yield. So as far as what your thoughts are on that, I mean, you do with that what you will. Hasn't been a bad year for them though. Am I buying more of Reddit at this price? I probably will, Yorin. Yeah. Was Microsoft still buyable? I like Microsoft at this price. Yeah, I do. And my thoughts on Grab, Tom, are I would hold some Grab just in the off chance that Uber acquires it. Um, Other than that, it's a bit rich in valuation, I think. Walmart's the biggest steal. It very well could be. It could be a great buy the dip opportunity for Walmart. View on airline stocks generally, or IRJ specifically. Daniel, I'm a shareholder. I actually do own shares in Delta Airlines. Very cyclical. It's probably a good time for me to get out, to be honest. If you want some predictable cyclicality with airlines, that's cool. There's a lot of things that impact them though that they don't have no control over. Whether it's the price of oil, regulatory concerns, the regulatory barriers, especially getting like new routes approved or like landing fees changing at multiple different levels of government, whether it's state, local, or national. It's a problem. Yeah. When managing a portfolio, is it reasonable to put like 80% ETFs and the other in 20% swing trading or something like that? To be honest, in in my view, I think you should probably do a little bit more research and educate yourself a little more. As far as ETFs are concerned, it's a great total stock market index funds or ETFs, whether it's like VTI, VOO, VOOG, or VOOV. I think are great ETFs for beginner investors who don't know a ton. Obviously, I'm not going to give financial advice to somebody who's so new about that about that situation. I'd say ETFs are a good place to start, but educate yourself. What about Vistra? I think we could see. Wow, kind of a rough day. The advantage Vistra has is it's a construction company with a backlog. I mean, all of their customers, whether they're hyperscalers or subcontractors of which or whoever else, not a bad place to be. The margins are thin though. We could see it hit 160 before the end of the year, I think. Maybe a little bit above. It's been a bit of a bumpy road for Vistra though. And we're near 52-week lows with them. It's all right. I think there are better value plays, to be honest. Into quantum computing or nuclear stocks. Kit for quantum, I'm bullish long term on quantum. Very long term. It's too early for me at the moment. Companies like Rigetti are very interesting. Companies like IonQ are very cool. They're all having to vertically consolidate right now. So the vertical integration that both those companies are doing are the right move. If you go look at their income statements, it's ugly. It's a money pit at the moment. And that's because of the R&D costs. What are some good sources to educate myself? I would say go find some books. There are some really, really strong, solid investing books that you can read. I recommend checking out Howard Marks. The Intelligent Investor, Ben Graham, is the Bible of investing, in my opinion. Burt Malkiel, Joel Greenblatt, these guys, they all have very solid Very solid books on investing. There's also Investopedia isn't a bad source, I would say. What stock is the best short term at the moment? Short term. I don't usually invest in super short term. If it's super short term investing, it might be a swing trade or usually a short position I'd take. What do I think of Moderna? I think right now with Moderna, the winning move is to sit on the sidelines until the market figures out what's going on. With what happened yesterday with Moderna, the opportunity was too good to ignore for shorting it. That's what I did. I took my profits, got out, happy with it. But the thing is that I think we need to kind of see what the market decides about this phase 3 clinical trial. It could be massively overhyped, or the total accessible market for this melanoma vaccine, if it works, or if the efficacy of the vaccine is not as good as the market's pricing in. That's a big problem for Moderna. Was looking at Intel. If they get that foundry business booming, could be a huge factor. It could be, Dan. I think it's going to take 18 to 24 months to turn things around. Intel's way too expensive at the moment for me. Dalio's Principles. Ray Dalio, great book. I love his books. I like Ray Dalio's stance on macro investing. I think he has an interesting philosophy when it comes to investing. Like his philosophies around interest rates and currencies, I think are pretty interesting. He's more of a macro investor. I think that's more for an intermediate or advanced investor, because that requires a much more in-depth knowledge and education on macroeconomics. At least in my view. What about AppLovin? Yeah, how's AppLovin doing today? I know AppLovin, $300 a share. And by the way, Oliver, thank you for the gifts, and J-Man and everybody who sent roses and stuff. Thank you guys, appreciate y'all. Yeah, AppLovin after that pretty rough Q2. Is this kind of like an IBM style situation where that was an overreaction? It could. It's tough to say. I have to do my homework on AppLovin. It probably needed to correct, especially since the beginning of the year. It's the right move, but I think with AppLovin, it requires a pretty in-depth look at how they're going to maintain growth, especially with digital advertising. I know that's a pretty competitive space. I like AppLovin. It could be a good one. It could be good fundamentals for AppLovin. If they're there, I definitely got to go investigate them if they're there. I haven't taken a full look at it for AppLovin. It deserves a full look. Not so nice guy. Thanks for stopping by. You're very, very welcome. Good fundamentals for AppLovin. Do a video on them. That might be my next one. That's not a bad idea. My current deep dive video that's coming out tomorrow, and I've done some filming for it, is Strategy Inc. This is the one that's coming out tomorrow. This should be a pretty interesting. It's going to be a pretty interesting video. This is a hard one. This was a really tough one. New stocks. What should I be looking to get into? Reading. Read books and educate yourself. Could it rival Nvidia? Dan, are we talking about Intel? It might. It's going to take a long time to do that. Andrew, do you like BWET? Breakwave Tanker Shipping ETF. Wow, look at that. What a run-up. My goodness. I bet that's something that nobody has paid a ton of attention to. Freight futures market, expectation of future costs of transporting crude oil. Cool. Well, their exact holdings I'd certainly want to know about. I'd imagine that's maybe one or two what's in this ETF? Which companies? Oliver, this is an interesting one. Obviously, it's amazing. Yeah, it's had a hell of a year. My goodness. Wow. I'd like to know which companies are in this or which commodities. Been asking about it, about BWET. It just doesn't stop. Yeah. So it's worth knowing. Could you do a deep dive YouTube video on AppLovin? And Eric Jensen on YouTube asked this. You know, Eric, that seems like what the people are asking for. Do a deep dive on AppLovin. That might be next week's video. That might be next week's play. Because it's an interesting story. It's had a rough year. It just got beaten up really badly again earlier this month. And there's a lot of people dogpiling on it. I would imagine because of its valuation. I mean, it was sitting at what, 650 a share earlier this year. It's lost more than half its value. Slowing revenue. Was this a story that was a stock that's being overhyped? Is it going to buy the dip opportunity? Maybe I'll check it out. SMCI, amazing report, got cleared for Interval A today about accusations. Oh, really? Because I know SMCI, their offices got raided in Taiwan, right? SMCI's fundamentals also look good. Yeah, this is an interesting story. If that's true. Or where it could go lower to see like 270 for AppLovin. Interesting, huh? Independent investigation cleared current executives of wrongdoing related to export control issues. Okay. Fiscal 2026 results, 78% year-over-year revenue increase, significant new orders reinforcing strong position in the AI infrastructure market. We're getting this for an 11.2 trailing 12-month PE. Beta's a little high at a 2. That's honestly not too bad, though, especially for being in the AI space at a $23.7 billion valuation. No dividend, but interesting. And then as far as SMCI's fundamentals, maybe that's been updated here in Barron's. That'd be pretty interesting to see. Okay. Improvement since the first quarter in revenue and profitability. Nice. This looks like it may have been an equity raise right here, though. 5.6 billion in inflows in the second quarter. That might have been an equity raise. Was cash or liquidity a problem? Because that ratio looks a lot tighter in the first. So this may be the price. Looks like this might be the price after it's diluted a bit. Interesting. Could you take a look at the fundamentals of Meta? They're going to be good, Joran. They're going to be really good. The problem with Meta is that a lot of what you'll see in its fundamentals are hidden in other business entities or off its balance sheet. Meta is tied to a bunch of special purpose vehicles related to all this CapEx spending. So while you'll see extremely good growth, revenue and profitability wise, and its balance sheet looks very good, and just insane CapEx spending, so we're going to have negative free cash flow for Meta. A lot of what's going on with the company isn't on its latest report. And the major lawsuit is also a problem as well. Yeah, major lawsuit is no good. That could turn into nothing. I don't know if they're going to settle. I don't know what that means. It's a pretty serious lawsuit that's being brought to Meta though. So, yeah. I was talking about CBRS OpenAI contract. Oh, got it, Dan. Okay. Got it. I thought you were talking about Intel. What's the best book for a trader to learn about stocks? OW, I'd say The Intelligent Investor is a good one. A Random Walk Down Wall Street's a really solid one. Any of Howard Marks's books aren't bad either. If your knowledge or like your background, if you don't have a very strong finance or economics background, starting at the very basics is where I'd suggest starting before you even open a brokerage account. Learn about all of that stuff. It's worth it. It's worth knowing. What do you think about Intel? Garinator, Intel's got a long road ahead of it. It's too expensive at the moment. Look at Fermi. Yeah, we did look at Fermi yesterday. How are they doing today? Huh. Whoa, they just jumped. Interesting. So with Fermi, again, like any REIT, you gotta look at the individual real estate assets. And with REITs, you gotta understand what the lease structures are. So with Fermi, it's probably 20-year leases with 4 or 5-year options. So the weighted average lease term is a KPI you got to look at with REITs, and what property cash flow looks like. It looks like they're losing money. That's a problem. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of Fermi then, still not a fan of it now. What kind of strategy do you do when you string trade? I look very closely at specific technical factors to see where the speed of momentum on certain things is what I take a look at. My standard indicators are, usually I look at 50 and 20, 60 and 200-day SMA with Bollinger Bands to get an idea of where support and resistance levels are tested. RSI and MACD aren't bad things to look at. Volume momentum is pretty important too. And then there are times when it's just too obvious not to take the play. So good examples of this were leading up to the SpaceX IPO. That was a pretty good day. Moderna was just it was too good to ignore. Talk more about Fermi. Why am I not a fan? It's a REIT that's losing money. It's hard to lose money as a REIT. What would I buy right now? Robert on YouTube asks, what would I buy right now? Robert, I like Reddit. I think the things going on with Reddit are vastly overblown. And we've seen some recovery after session lows for Reddit. It's at a great price right now, in my opinion. The fundamentals of Reddit are extremely impressive. Extremely impressive. Do I have a strategy for day trading stocks? Garrett, I don't typically day trade. My strategy is I act when I find value. That's it. Do I see value in Ondas? I think Ondas needed to correct. It's not. Yeah, another bad day for Ondas. They're showing signs of promise. Things are improving for Ondas. It's been kind of a rough quarter for them. They're getting the contracts that they need. Once Ondas lands like a multi-billion-dollar contract with some big government somewhere, that would be interesting to me. The problem is that usually by the time you find out that news, it's too late and the reaction's already happened. So, yeah. What price did I get on Reddit? Brandon, I got in on Reddit at 162 a share, 158, and I'll probably get in today. Later, I'll probably put in another buy order maybe after market close. This is a great price. This is a fantastic price for Reddit. Will Nvidia go up after the earnings call? It might, Thomas. We'll probably live stream Nvidia's earnings too, because that's going to have big implications for everybody else. I'd imagine we're going to see a slight revenue and earnings beat. I know Nvidia is one of the most watched stocks out of anywhere, and there's a lot of analysts that are covering Nvidia. So expectations for Nvidia, I would imagine, are probably going to be pretty close. We'll see, though. You think it'll drop? It could. Yeah, it could drop. Okay, what's my opinion on Super Microcomputer? Robert, fantastic fundamentals, and they got great news today that the legal issues that they were facing around export controls was cleared. That's really good news for them. SMCI is one that I'm going to take a look at for sure. I think about Vertiv in the coming years will reach 400. In the next coming years, I mean, yeah, it's possible in the next coming years, but that you're going to be waiting years. So to be on, like, it's all right. Can we look at Ross earnings today? Maybe. We'll see. It's my background. This is Yahoo Finance right here. This is Yahoo Finance is my background, and then this is Barron's. The reason why I like Barron's is we can just take a quick look at the three statements for whatever company we want, just to get an idea of how the business has performed over the last couple of quarters or the last couple of years. What do you think of Moderna? I think Moderna is a hang out on the sidelines for Moderna. Just for now. I think we need more information to come out. It wouldn't surprise. Wow, yeah, it's correcting even more. It wouldn't surprise me if we see Moderna come down to, you know, if it had. I don't think tomorrow will be as bad of a day for Moderna as it is. This was expected, though. Everybody should have seen this coming. 25% is a big correction, but that's small compared to the day it had yesterday. So this was coming. I'd imagine we could see another day similar to today with Moderna. Don't forget the deep dive on Rheinmetall. Yeah, Olaf, I won't. There's a lot of people asking me to do a lot of stuff. I'm trying to keep up with everyone, if I'm being honest. It's going to go to zero. It might. I'm thinking of shorting it tonight. Well, tell you what, Garen. Short it and then come back tomorrow and let me know how you did. Man, SoFi will not hit 30 anytime soon. No, Phil, it won't. SoFi's boring. I don't get why people are so obsessed with SoFi. I get tons of questions about SoFi. It's been sitting between 15 and 20 a share for most of the year. This is not a particularly exciting company. Decided to enter AppLovin today. What do you think? Well, Thomas, I guess, the masses have asked me to do a deep dive on AppLovin, especially after the disastrous Q2 report it had. So I don't know 100% yet, but I will do a deep dive on it and let you guys know what my thoughts on it are. Thoughts on Nebius? Massively overvalued. Probably another good short opportunity, to be honest. And like the new debt, the convertible bond sale that they're currently doing their roadshow for, I'd imagine that they've hired an investment bank to do a roadshow for them. I would love to see how those are going. Yesterday it was only a $4.5 billion convertible note sale. I guess it's now $5 billion. So they need to tap the ATM even more than they already have. This is a company, by the way, that has less revenue and less profitability than CoreWeave, and it's worth $10 billion more. Give me a break, bro. Give me a break. It is pure delusion that is fueling the stock price at the moment. I love Nebius. Well, Jerome, I hope you got in a long time ago. How to avoid making an emotional trade buying mRNA right now? You stop listening to people, and you go. You know what you do? If you want to avoid making an emotional trade, you go read the really boring literature about what happened. What I would do, D, is I would go learn about all of the science behind this vaccine and go read the regulatory filings, all that kind of stuff. CoreWeave is cooked with all their debt. Yes. CoreWeave is completely cooked. Nebius isn't far behind them. Sounds like a lot. Well, I mean, that a lot of that work may prevent you from making a very costly trade. Nebius is great management as the front runner when it comes to data centers. Yeah, I guess. I don't buy it. They also have a lot of deals. Most of those deals that you hear about is still sitting in an RPO backlog. An RPO, remaining performance obligation, is not contracted revenue. That's a huge mistake that a ton of people make. When they hear the word backlog, they think that's guaranteed revenue that the company's going to make, meaning ink is signed, all that kind of stuff. No, that is not what remaining performance backlog is. I feel bad you call me D, you call me Noah. Sounds good, Noah. Will do. Hood and ServiceNow thoughts? Kai, I think Robinhood's an interesting play. I would hang on to it. I don't know if I want to get into Robinhood at this price. It hasn't had a great year. Hasn't had a great quarter. I have to do my homework on Robinhood. I'd hang on to the shares though. But I'd need to see a little bit more of why the fundamentals lead toward a bullish indicator for Robinhood. And then the other one you asked about, I think, was ServiceNow. ServiceNow, in my view, is a hold. I'd consider taking profits if it breaks out about 135 a share. We're getting close to that. I'd still hang on to my ServiceNow shares because ServiceNow has had a great month. It's done quite well. I got into Robinhood at 40, but crypto booms. I think I can almost double it from here. Well, then at that point, I think you kind of have to ask yourself, do I like the profits I have? And if you do you want to take them or you want to hang on and see where things go? You really gotta you gotta think carefully about that. AUR, yeah. How's Moderna looking? We're at about 130 a share. With Moderna. Yeah, Aurora Innovation, the self-driving company out of Pittsburgh. Don't like them. Caleb, so here's the deal. These guys have been around for 10 years and they still haven't successfully monetized self-driving. If you've been in business for 10 years and you haven't made a profit and things haven't been going, like you aren't making a lot of money, which, by the way, $3 million in revenue in 2025 on an $816 million loss. The market has spoken to you. This is not. The market has spoken to you and said the value proposition isn't there. Their plan to have 200 fully driverless trucks is fine. They're losing money out the ass. Hard pass. I invested at 350 a year ago. Caleb, if you invested at 350 a year ago, I'd honestly consider taking profits. I seriously would. Because as far as like all-time performance, like this is as good as it's just been kind of a laggard mess. Or at least the last 5 years have been, yeah, and that's basically all-time performance since it IPO'd in 2021, I believe, or early 2022. My top 5 stocks today, Kai. As far as top 5 bull picks, Reddit is up there. Take-Two Interactive's up there. I think Microsoft is at an interesting valuation at the moment. I also think there could be a good potential for a buy the dip opportunity with Walmart. And one of my favorite defensive plays at the moment right now is Waste Management. Waste Management's a rock solid defensive play in my view. Reddit broke 150. Did they? Nice. Finally. Yeah. So this is so dumb. Like this is so stupid. This is pure rumor mill right here. What do you think of Bloom Energy? Is it overpriced? I think it is, yeah. I do. I'm interested in the niche that Bloom Energy has. I'm interested in the business that their business model. I need to learn more about it. But earlier this year, when they were above $300 a share, I was like, give me a break. That's way too expensive. And even now, it's still way too expensive. But the company itself interests me. I don't know. AUR seemed pretty good ever since the recent partnership with Berkshire Hathaway and Uber. I mean, those partnerships for Aurora were nice. But where's the money? Where's the money? Cool. I have partnerships. How am I getting paid? Like I get the idea that cool technology and startups that go public with unique ideas is fun. They're and interesting. I get that. And there are some that are successful without a doubt. But these guys have been doing this for 10 years. 10 years. And they behave just like a typical IPO. Pure hype once they went public, and then it was all dog crap since then. You do $3 million in business last year on an $800 million lot. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I think Google and Tesla will partner for driverless rides. I mean, they might. I'm sure, Waymo has something to say about that. Driverless cars with Google isn't what's cool about them, though. The fund structure around VLCC and Suezmax crude tanker contracts. Don't Google it. Do we have a ticker? Do you see a future in optical laser sector, specifically AOI? Yeah, I do. Yeah, they could be a strong business. They could be a very good business. Hood sub 93. Theo, I got to do more homework on Robinhood to see if sub 93 is a good entry point. I really got to do my more homework on him. It's a good time to get into Reddit. Is Reddit a safe stock still with potential loss? Reddit still could go down. I mean, the market still may not like Reddit in the near future. I like Reddit at this price because of the incredibly strong fundamentals and because of the very, very good business model they've had. They've had 8 consecutive quarters of 60% revenue growth. That's serious traction. That's serious growth. Daily active user growth has been fantastic. They're going to monetize their data for AI content licensing. They're going to monetize their content for training AI models. That's still in its infancy. It's still being worked out with Google. It still could be very successful. I like Reddit at this price. GE Vernova. This is an interesting play too. What surprised me about GE Vernova is that they've been the most successful since GE span itself off a couple of years back. I thought GE Aviation was going to knock it out of the park, but honestly, it's been GE Vernova. This is an impressive. They've been very impressive, and I think that the demand for their power plant turbines is only going to continue to grow, especially natural gas turbines. Definitely a solid play. Strong fundamentals too with GE Vernova. SpaceX, Willie. SpaceX doesn't interest me until it's below $100 a share. And their lockup release schedule, I think we're going to see more shares come out, and I think we're going to probably see more insiders cash out, but at the same time, we're going to see institutional capital, like index funds or weighted funds, buy shares. So it's probably going to sit between 120 and 160 for a while, I would imagine. We may see some wild swings for SpaceX, but again, I'm not interested in it until it goes below 100 a share. CRM. Kai, I think ServiceNow is a little more exciting, but we're kind of near our target price, at least in my view, for ServiceNow. CRM could be good. It's had a pretty good month though. SaaS, I think, is slowly making a comeback. NVIDIA's strong fundamentals. No, NVIDIA's incredible fundamentals. Very, very strong fundamentals. Very impressive with NVIDIA. Thoughts on Micron for the rest of the year? Micron is not bad. There's a lot to like about Micron. They have very, very strong fundamentals. Could we see them breach 1,200 per share by the end of the year? It's possible. But what we need to see, we're going to learn a lot about what's going to happen with Micron, and namely semiconductors and memory, next week at NVIDIA's earnings. That'll give us, depending on what NVIDIA's guidance is, I think we'll have a direct impact on Micron and SanDisk, Western Digital stock price, like SK Hynix, these guys too. Anything really speculative that you like? No lotto ticket that you stash in your portfolio. Captain Triage, it's a great question. I haven't given that a ton of thought, if I'm being honest. It would probably, if it would be speculative, it would probably be an early stage biotech play or pharmaceutical play. But to be honest, not really. I don't hold any super speculative things. You could make the argument that gold is. I keep gold as a macro hedge, though. So I guess gold. I don't know if that answers your question, though. What about NVIDIA's guidance would affect memory? Well, depending on what NVIDIA's guidance is, if it's good guidance and they expect to see a much more stronger demand, then that's probably going to have a positive impact on memory. The more GPUs are being sold, more Rubin Veras, more Blackwells being sold, more memory, more semiconductors, all that stuff you need. Western Digital, I think what's interesting about Western Digital is it's slightly less valuable on an earnings basis than SanDisk is. I think that's worth looking at. It's strong fundamentals though, and there's a lot of things to like about Western Digital. So as far as getting in, got to do more homework on them. Micron or SK Hynix? Alex. Honestly, I think SK Hynix takes the edge just because they're aggressive about buybacks. I mean, SK Hynix had they had a good day today because they announced a big buyback. Their management announced a big buyback, so that's pretty accretive for shareholders with strong fundamentals too. A week ago, if you asked me, I'd call it a toss-up. I think SK Hynix takes the edge. Do I like Caterpillar? I think Caterpillar is. I mean, it's stabilizing, which is good. At least, it's been a rough month, and we're basically flat on the year. During the second quarter, or excuse me, during the start, like June and July in here, it was overvalued. Definitely overvalued. Is it going to continue to drop in price? It might, and it actually might be a decent point to enter Caterpillar just because they have a very strong business. I like what they do, and their revenue streams are strong, especially when it comes to how they finance their equipment out. So it could be a time to revisit Caterpillar, especially with their tariff refund and $20.5 billion in Q2 revenue, $8.17 per share in earnings. We're still at a 35. I think if Caterpillar continues to correct, it could be interesting. It's probably close to fairly valued at this point, though. I did a full DCF analysis here on my channel and did a deep dive on Caterpillar last September when it was about $400 a share. And then I took another look at it again in February. I liked them both times then. It's been on an absolute insane run. But we got things dialed back a bit, and it's corrected quite a bit. So now it's a question of, do we revisit it again? Could be. How about AMAT? I've been an AMAT shareholder for a long time. I've always liked AMAT. I'm still hanging on to some of my AMAT shares, despite the rough couple of weeks it's had. Is SK Hynix good for call options with 10x to October 16th? AMG, is that an October 16th expiry? I mean, it depends on what your strike and what your premium is. AppLovin comes back. Patrice, it sounds like AppLovin is probably going to be my deep dive for next week. A lot of people want me to check out AppLovin. And I might do that. Yeah, AMG, as far as your AppLovin, or wait, what stock? Hang on. I got to go look at your previous comment just a sec. Yeah, as far as your SK Hynix calls are concerned, hard to say. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, well, you'll probably see some movement next week in them because of NVIDIA earnings. Thoughts on a semiconductor ETF? Yeah, so when it comes to semiconductor and memory ETFs, I'd rather just buy the individual companies and just get the best one out of all of them. I get why people like them, though. It's a little bit less work. Have we checked out Applied Digital? Yeah, Kai, we have. I don't like Applied Digital. Really not a fan of Applied Digital. They should be making a lot more money than they are. They're in a very exciting space right now, and they're losing money, and they're losing a lot. That's a big problem. With Moderna, we closed at 130 today, guys. 130.64, down 25% on the session. We're seeing some recovery after market. Now, as far as technicals, we'll take a quick look at what volumes looked like on Moderna. So here are Moderna volumes at the end of the trading session. Momentum was slowing down a bit. Let's go look at the RSI, see what the RSI tells us. Yeah. Oh, whoops, I got to get rid of this. My bad. 1 second. I'm going to go look at the RSI, see what that tells us. Pretty big split between the lead and the tailing indicator. Huh. Okay, yeah. We'll have to look at more of that later. Interesting news on the Moderna front, at least on the trading session. So for those of you who are in swing trading, time to take a look. How many shares of it did I have? Now, I shorted Moderna this morning. So I shorted Moderna at 150 a share. Got out at 138. So I didn't capture everything I could have, but I was like, you know what? I'm cool with what I've got. So I had a nice little uptick this morning from that short. People buy ETFs because they can't afford individual companies. ETFs are less risky too. You're not wrong. No, I not wrong. Bought heavy into Novo Nordisk. Yeah, Novo Nordisk is like Novo Nordisk is an interesting one because it's kind of like in my view, Novo Nordisk kind of reminds me of that like that fantastic dog at the animal shelter that just deserves to get adopted into a wonderful family. But, because it's not the most popular breed of dog at the moment, it's completely overlooked by the other, rescue French bulldog or some popular breed that is Eli Lilly a couple of stalls down from it. And there's so much good value here with Novo Nordisk. What's crazy to me is how its stock price has been so far this year. I feel bad for Novo now. Yeah, I feel bad for this. I feel bad for this company. As crazy as that sounds. What's the best opportunity for me right now? Francesco, I'm short CoreWeave. That's my highest conviction play. My second highest conviction play is Reddit, especially with the price movement today. Bullish on Reddit, bearish on CoreWeave. And I am also bullish on Take-Two Interactive. Why is Bitcoin going up? Bitcoin, oh man, I thought we were going to break 73,000 today. Bitcoin's going up because of what's going on in the U.S. bond market, in the U.S. Treasury market. And what's going on with MSTR? The same reason that Bitcoin's up. MSTR's up because Bitcoin's up. The Clarity Act? No, it's the buybacks. It's the announced buyback activities. Why is CoreWeave never seeing a good time? I sold after earnings, but I never see a good time. Maybe a little more patience, Paul, but I mean, I got into my CoreWeave position, both of them. One of them I closed back in June. Still hanging on to one of them. And I was in the red on one of my shorts, especially after earnings. But yeah, do I do prop trading? No. The trading that I do, guys, the investing style that I take, I'm a mix between a growth and value investor who takes technical analysis into account, and I trade when I find value. Do you think a recession's coming? If so, when? I think there is an AI bubble. There absolutely is a bubble. I think it's going to continue to grow. When are we going to see a big correction? I don't know. That's super hard to call. Most people are wrong when they do say that. How much will the market correct? That's also really hard to call as well. Like, do I see things falling off? The market falling off a cliff in a 2008 style recession in the near future? It's certainly possible. I think there's a lot more hype and a lot more investor demand for AI, though. Especially, like, we haven't even seen OpenAI or Anthropic's IPO yet. I think once those companies go public and things may not turn out as well as a lot of people have hoped, that could be it. How is there a bubble? Historical PE ratios, Kai, the amount of debt financing that's used to fuel AI capex, off-balance sheet activity of hyperscalers, the interest rate environment, you can make an argue for that. Only AI is booming, not other stocks. Well, other stocks are benefiting from it as a result. It's part of the reason why, like, it's the reason why we're in a bull market right now. We're in a mid-late stage bull market, in my view. What does off-balance sheet activity mean? It means that companies are using other business entities, whether it's like an LLC or special purpose vehicle, to fulfill things that they want to get done that they will eventually become liable for. A perfect example of this is Meta's Hyperion data center down in Louisiana. That data center is owned by a special purpose vehicle, but Meta, it's going to be an operating lease liability for Meta once it's done, because they're going to be paying rent once they occupy it. That's not on Meta's balance sheet, though, at the moment. Would circular financing add it to it? Yeah, circular financing, Kai, that's another perfect example. And NVIDIA is the source of a lot of the circular financing deals we've seen. They're providing a backstop for OpenAI, and OpenAI is also their customer, and they're also investing equity into OpenAI. That's just one example. This is one example. That's similar to, yeah, it's similar with NVIDIA GPU-backed bonds. If that becomes a thing, if NVIDIA successfully convinces the asset managers it's talking, like if they successfully convince Blackstone, BlackRock, KKR, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, whatever banks or investment banks or funds that they're working with, to create a new type of asset-backed security, which is a GPU-backed bond, that's a problem. That's a big problem. Do you think it'd be smart to short Moderna? Garinator, I'd have to look a little bit more at the technicals. It could be a good idea, but I'm going to leave that decision up to you. Think crypto will bounce back? Crypto is bouncing back in a big way right now. Do I follow any Canadian stocks? Dustin, I watched Aritzia pretty closely for a while, and Lululemon too. And some Canadian energy plays looked interesting for a while. There's a lot of other things on my plate though at the moment. Amex recently lowered people's credits limits. What do you think that means? It's it's one data point. As soon as we have other companies mention that they're limiting people's credit limits, then it becomes a trend. Should we buy Nvidia for August 26th? Jawad, I don't think that's a terrible idea. I'd imagine they'd beat, but I don't think we're going to see a huge movement in the price. It's possible. Bitcoin to $1 million in 5 years. There you go. If you're big on Bitcoin, then you should be big on MSTR as well. Do you want Walmart? Do you think Walmart will go up in the next couple months? It could. It will. It could. It could. This could be a great buy the dip opportunity for Walmart. Can we look at CLBT? Yeah, we can. Celebrate Limited. Okay, who are they? What do they do? Looks like they are a Israeli software firm. Software services legally sanctioned investigations in Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Americas. Provides a platform for software solutions used to access, collect, review, extract, decode, decrypt, analyze, share, and manage digital evidence across investigative lifecycle for a range of investigations, such as child exploitation, homicide, terror, border crime. Okay, interesting. Digital forensic software reviews digital evidence from various sources. Huh. Okay, interesting business. How have they performed? Do they have a lot of good customers or clients? 48 PE, that's not crazy for a software firm. Some short interest. Looks like quarterly performance has been okay. And they're managing about a 5% margin. Maybe a little less or a little more. It's what cops use to pull stuff off iPhones. Yeah, sounds about right. It's an interesting cost structure. This feels really, really tight margin-wise. So what I want to know is why. What is it in their cost structure? Like when I look at this, their revenue relative to net income, what I'm really curious about is what their operating margin is. Because if they have a good operating margin, what that tells me is they have probably a lot of high non-cash expenses or a lot of debt. And if they have high non-cash expenses, whether it's stock-based compensation or depreciation, then what assets are depreciating and what basis are they using? And if it's stock-based compensation, who's it going to? What's the vesting period? All that kind of stuff. This is pretty tight margins for a software company. It should be better. So a 48 PE might be a little bit high. I mean, they're making money. It seems okay. How have they done so far this year? Oh, rough year though. Not a great year. Yeah, so that it warrants more investigation. It's not looking good so far though. Just get, dude. It definitely should be better. Yeah, I agree. It should be better. If the bubble were to pop, would you hold or go defensive? Defensive, what are you buying? If I were to go defensive, it would be ideally before any type of pop, and it would probably be in phases over time. What I would do to protect myself from any, like what would I do now if I think that there would be a pop? Gold, I like gold as a macro hedge. That's a good way to cover yourself from a macro perspective. Consumer cyclicals and consumer defensive plays are a good way to protect yourself. So like buying stock at like Kroger, for example, that's the largest grocery store in the US. Fantastic defensive play. Waste management. I own some shares in waste management. Really, really solid defensive play. Insurance may be a good idea. that, well, maybe, but again, private credit exposure is also an issue there. So those are just some ideas I have off the top of my head. Do you like any drone stocks? I mean, the most popular one is obviously Ondas at the moment. And I don't love their valuation. I like what they're doing though. Best long term is Amazon, Nvidia, and Tesla. What signals a pop to me? See, Kaya, that's that's hard to say. I don't know if it'd be one. It could be 50 different catalysts. It could be 10 different catalysts. Like if the AI bubble were to pop, maybe it's one day the Japanese dump 50 billion of US treasuries and we see the 10-year spike above 5%. And then a couple days later, OpenAI has a bad earnings report. And then that would impact everything in the AI supply chain. And then maybe there's a run on a couple private credit funds a week later. I don't know. Like we can go on and on and on. I don't know if it's going to be one specific thing. I don't know if it could be 50 different specific things. And I don't even know how much of a correction there would be. It's really hard to say. It's really fucking hard to say. Thoughts on CYCU? Almost no thoughts. I've never thought of these guys. Super small micro caps like these, I almost never pay attention to. Is this? Oh my god! It's actually on the Nasdaq. It's a $17 million market cap company. They received a delisting determination letter, and they're appealing it. Yeah. Oh my god. All right. What? Okay. So Timon, why? What's the bull thesis here? 69 cents a share. Organizations for IT and cybersecurity needs. And looks like they lost every single dollar they made in revenue. At least according to Barron's. Yeah, no, I don't get it. Don't get it. What website is this? This is Yahoo Finance right here, and then I also have Barron's up on the other tab. I feel like it wouldn't correct terribly because companies are actually making money like NVIDIA and Monopoly. We'll see. We'll see. I know that AI companies are losing money. And a lot of companies involved in the AI supply chain are barely making a profit. And some are. Do I still like Nike? Yes, I still like Nike. Nike has been doing an amazing job at holding the line at around the 38.50 support level. It is stubborn right here. It has gotten beaten up really badly, and we've tested the $40 mark multiple times. Like, look at it. We tested in July, tested it again earlier this month, tested it again. It's still sticking around at around $40 a share. My target price for Nike is 57. It could be a while till we see that, but there's still skepticism around the turnaround plan. I think they have the right management team in place. Still in a downtrend. Unless it breaks support levels, which I see around a 38.50 support level. I don't know. It's been an awesome 3 days in crypto. That's for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Would Netflix be a defensive option? No. The thing is with Netflix is that see that Netflix is a play that I really got to pay close attention to because Bill Ackman just got in on Netflix. He bought quite a sizable share. They had bad Q2 guidance though. So I need to this is one I really got to think about because they've improved quite a bit since the beginning of this month, middle of July as well. I'm tilted towards defensive right now. No, Matt. For the most part, Matthew, no. And the reason why is because I think that we still need to see. My thesis for not my position for not holding more defensive is that I am following the market's assumptions and growth assumptions that all of this AI CapEx spending may end up working out. And I think they're very, very people are very deep in the sunk cost fallacy at the moment, I think. And I think a lot of investors are piling into AI because it hasn't fully proven out yet, despite the cost structures of it and the how much money is being spent and in some cases being lost by AI companies. And I think the market wants to see that through the end. That's why I think we'll probably see more room for growth and expansion in the near future. Do I respond to DMs? Yeah, I get back to DMs as much as I can. Bill lost a ton of money in Netflix 3 years ago. And Bill's also had a lot of wins. Bill's kind of like Michael Burry in that sense. Like, nobody cares about his wins, and nobody cares about Michael Burry's wins. Bill made out pretty good on Chipotle and some others. Market's still in a bull run. Yeah, it is. And I think there's still more room for the bull run. What are some modern recession indicators? If you look back and go back historically in time, the most reliable recession indicators have always been credit cycles, levels of short and long term debt. Valuations is another interesting one that can help you with that. So buy Netflix. I as far as like getting into Netflix now, I can't say for certain. I need to do more homework. I didn't finish my Netflix thought a second ago. I still need to do more homework on Netflix because there's some conflicting things going on with Netflix. They have a content and a price problem, which, you know, they're overpriced and their content is kind of deteriorated in value, at least according to a lot of their users, which is a problem. So they need to solve those problems. A lot of big institutional investors and hedge funds are getting in on them. They had a revenue beat, earnings miss Q2, but bad guidance. So it's weird. It's a weird situation with Netflix. Aduro Clean Technologies, whoever else asked, water-based chemical recycling technologies. Oh yeah, I remember this. So I looked at this once before. They're in London, Canada. Future applications in hydrochemolytic plastics upcycling. Yeah, so they're not making money. That's not a surprise though. When did they go public? Wait, what's the ticker again? ADUR. Yeah, and they're listed in Toronto too, of course. That makes sense. Some short interest, not as much as I thought, about 12.8%. Nice. Solid revenue growth. Very solid revenue growth quarter over quarter. Very interesting. No, this is interesting. 17.3% margin. I'd like to know who their customers are. And like what their growth plan is. Wow, low beta too. Interesting. Yeah, but we're getting a 1.3 from Yahoo, so they're looking at different ways. Not a bad year either. Huh. No, this is a solid suggestion. This could be an interesting, and this is actually an interesting microcap. Not bad. I'll add it to my watch list. All right, Caleb and Victor are talking about crypto. You think crypto bull run is starting now, or it's a fake? Looks great. For now, Caleb, I think we may see some pullback with Bitcoin, but the reasons why it's going up are very real. And those reasons, I'd imagine, are sticking around. And those reasons are the problems with the U.S. bond market, the U.S. Treasury market at the moment. The U.S. government is using a credit card to pay its mortgage. And honestly, Japan has America by the balls with the debt situation. So if we see more inflation in Japan and thereby raising rates by the Bank of Japan or a dumping of U.S. debt, that's going to put a lot of pressure on American interest rates. It's going to put a lot of pressure on the yen carry trade. And that's not ideal. And not to mention the inflation that could arise as a result of things that are still going on in the Middle East. No, the rates are going up, so it's hard to say what we'll feel the effects of first. I'd imagine that rates or the effect of rates are going to be felt before inflation, but we'll see. So Bitcoin may come down a little bit, but it may stay above 70,000. Bitcoin going up is the same reason gold's going back up. That's exactly right. Yeah. And that's exactly why I hold gold, is for situations like this. Look at Micron. Yeah, let's go look at Micron really quick. Sitting 974 share. It was a solid day for them. There's a lot of things about Micron. Their fundamentals are incredibly strong. Are we going to see Micron where it was earlier this year at above $1,000 a share? That seems to be the resistance level. So, and we've tested that already twice. So as far as upside with Micron, and I'll go look at, let's go just check it out here in TradingView. I'm just going to go look at Micron and just kind of see where things are with them. There we go. Zoom out a little bit more. Yeah, so here's Micron since here's its earnings, and this was towards the end of June. And it's around that $1,000 mark that we've seen some resistance on it. For example, here, over here, we've seen it right here. There was some oversold momentum right here when it briefly breached 1,000. So from a technical standpoint, there might not be a ton of immediate upside to Micron. I'd imagine it'd be an announcement that would probably push things. Micron very bullish above 1,050. I'd love to know what would push it above that level. Yeah, as far as the market's resistance to that level, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me either. What is that indicator? Vincent, you were looking at a candlestick chart with volume with the what moving average do I have here? With the 100 SMA and Bollinger Bands with an RSI indicator down on bottom. SanDisk to 3,000. Okay, I don't see it. You're probably going to be waiting a while. Micron just needs the NASDAQ to pull it up with an earnings beat. Yeah, I guess the question is, Matthew, does it need, how big of an earnings beat does it need to be? Because it sounds like it needs to be a pretty big one. In order to push it up to, to kind of break current resistance levels. SLS. All right, Mark, I see you don't need to spam. Yeah, SLS Life Science. I've looked at these guys yesterday. We looked at them before. I said it yesterday. I'll say it again. I don't know enough about these guys to feel confident in investing in them. I wasn't a huge fan of it yesterday. I'm not a huge fan of it now. Again, though, I take that with a grain of salt because I need to know more about the company. And then Robert on YouTube asked SanDisk. SanDisk is solid. The valuation, there are some indicators that SanDisk is undervalued. The question then becomes, what's going to end up happening? Are we going to see like a big memory sell-off or something like this? Is SanDisk going to go above $2,200 a share like we saw back in June? I don't think so anytime soon. It doesn't feel like that will be the case. Do I invest in crypto? Con, I don't. I don't have any crypto assets at the moment. It's probably not a bad idea to have some, though. All right, guys. I'm going to call it a stream. We just hit the 2-hour mark, and I got to run. I got to take care of some stuff. So thank you all very much for joining. I had a ton of fun talking with you guys. Today was a super interesting stream just because of what was going on. Big bad day for Walmart. Another big correction for Moderna. A lot of people taking profits in that stock. Bitcoin is on a rocket ship. We could see 73,000 before the end of the day. That's very realistic. Gold is on a run. The bond yields are spiking. Things are going crazy in the markets at the moment. SpaceX, we saw a bit of a correction with the shared lockup schedule with SpaceX. I imagine we're going to continue to see movement with that. All types of interesting things going on. Lots of interesting stuff. And always have a great time talking with you guys. Always enjoy exchanging ideas with everybody. To everyone who asked questions, thank you so much for participating. Had a ton of fun talking with you guys. If I missed your question today, I apologize. I think I got everybody's for the most part. I think I did a good job today. But again, I apologize if I didn't get everybody's question. Sometimes the chat moves pretty quick. Sometimes I take too long on my explanations. Still improving on that front. So if I missed your question, I'm sorry about that. I will be live tomorrow. And if this is your first time hanging out, I will be here tomorrow. I live stream every day for about an hour and a half to 2 hours during the week. So we'll see. Tomorrow should be a very interesting day. I'd love to see what ends up happening from a macro perspective. Earnings are coming up. I think IREN, we may have NeoCloud earnings soon. Next week is a big week for earnings. We're going to have NVIDIA earnings next week. We're definitely going to be checking that out and seeing what the implications are of that, depending on what the results are. And yeah, tons of interesting stuff going on. Tomorrow, y'all, I'm going to finish up filming and editing my deep dive video that I post on YouTube. For this week's deep dive, it is Strategy Inc., MSTR. That's the ticker we're checking out this week. This is Michael Saylor's Bitcoin-backed company. Working on the deep dive for that, and that will get posted to YouTube. So make sure you go check out YouTube as well, because I have deep dives posted there, especially for those of you who weren't satisfied with an answer I gave today. So go to YouTube, go check out the channel, go hit subscribe. That would mean a ton if y'all would hit the subscribe button on YouTube. That would mean a lot. And leave some comments, leave some likes. Feel free to roast me. Game is game. Anyway, guys, I will be back tomorrow. Y'all have a fantastic evening, and we'll talk soon. Have a good one.